Ruler School is brought to you by Odyssey Games, where you can go to pre-order upcoming Force of Will sets, ccgprime.com for singles and supplies, cardodoko.com for those rulers in the international market looking for product, as well as our guest lecturer members Vite Ramen and Full Grammar Alchemist. Class is in session.
Hey there guys, welcome back to another deck profile with yours truly, Paul Reisman. Today we are jumping into my Nero-Diabolos deck that I was piloting for the channel against Jeremy's Daumir Belphegor deck. Nero has been a very interesting ruler for me because it's been me trying to figure out what exactly do I want to do with him. And I think in this version, it made sense to me to go for a more resonator-heavy build to make use of his Nexus counters and how he accumulates them over time. Now, there are some things in this that, for me, I definitely would have preferred a little bit different just in terms of card choices, but at least getting a basic idea in a shell for what Nero is trying to do as one of the main protagonists of this cluster has been really interesting. So what we have here is all of your students are going to have your basic divinity of 1, and that will be expanded through their use of the pacts that we will use. So we'll go through the pact after this as well. But basically, your Invisible Friends effect is really what we're using here to create Nexus counters by putting non-token Resonator cards into the field. And of course, we get a few of these very basic additions that come into play for Nero as we go into Wander. In this particular format, we are working with a lot of really strong, good turn 1 resonators. Things like the Pack of Hounds, which are really, really good for not only creating a Nexus counter, but then also putting your opponent in a situation where they either have to answer this or start taking a ton of damage. And so I thought this was incredibly, incredibly good because we are kind of boxed into those blue, black, and green colors because of our pact. Let's jump into the pact and unpack this a little bit, pun intended. So Nero and Valentio can use this. You're going to see my Valentio deck in the future using Diabolos' pact here. But I will be getting +6 to my divinity with this. And during the turn, if I would draw a card during my draw phase, I either pay 3 or 7. And for every 300 life that I paid, I put the top card of my deck into my hand instead of drawing it. If I would gain 600 life or more, I gain 5 instead, and then my Diabolos spells get 1 void less to be played, meaning that I get access to some really interesting cards. Things like Nightheart, Guardian of Diabolos' Labyrinth. As you can see, Diabolos is in fact in his name. So this is a Flying Bane Dolly, essentially, that has a lot of really cool things going for it. If it gets destroyed, not only does it get put back in your hand, you get a Raven token, which is really helpful. So this helps to proc your Nexus counters and continually give you fuel to make more as this gets destroyed. If you do outnumber your opponent with Resonators, you can just pick a card from their hand and get rid of it. That's relatively helpful, and whenever this card deals battle damage, you can also do the same thing. So as you kind of cycle this guy in the slower format and the resonator based format of Paradox, this guy can actually kind of get a little out of control if your opponent lets you do that. And for a 1 cost, that's pretty good, all things overall being said. So these are my 4 Diabolos cards. I'm also playing a couple of the 3-headed Razor Whip as part of this package because the +3/+3, I'm sorry, the +3/-3 in Terrifying is actually kind of relevant. You can de-randomize this if you really want to, but if your opponent doesn't have anything on the field, the stat buff itself is actually pretty decent. So I thought I would try this out, but ultimately would decide I would probably cut this going into the future. Of course, I have to play 3 of my Warden. This card is actually kind of okay, even though it's 3 black. Going later into the game and giving something -9/-9 is pretty fun. If I just need to tutor a card, I can do that as well. But for the most part, I don't feel like I'm playing my wardens very much in this format. So take it as you need it. I'm not really making this warden nearly as much other than for a removal spell, for instance. We are heavily into black, so that means we get access to things like Dorian, the Heartless Aristocrat. This is probably one of the most important cards in the format for War Paradox, if you ask me. This card is really, really, really good. It also has Vileborn 4, which is a very high Vileborn count for a 1-cost Resonator. That's incredibly, incredibly good. Not to mention, it's kind of a Darkness version of Rebel Meta, but the difference is it doesn't have flying, it doesn't have barrier, or any of those other keyword skills. It does gain, however, that effect that if it deals damage, it halves your opponent's life, which is fairly impactful. It can also draw you extra cards. I've never found myself going into that mode though, so just be aware of that. The other card that you really need to be paying attention to is the Warden Killer itself, Grendel. It is a 5 cost that gets cheaper, but it's still a 5 cost whenever it registers damage against a Warden. You're going to just be killing Wardens right out. If this thing is able to land a hit, chances are it might, because it does have flying, and then it gets rid of some of the things that would block it, so that's really, really helpful as well. If you have 3 Darkness runes removed, spoiler alerts, we don't have that in this in particular, so you're not going to be able to play them from the graveyard for that particular reason, but it's pretty good for that. I am playing a couple of Black Witch too. There was a theory that I had in my head where we could go into a kind of a Witch Box package, which would then trigger multiple Nexus counters as those cards come into the field. So this card feels like a natural fit, especially as you go later into the game. Of course, we talked about Pack of Hounds a little bit. I'm playing 1 Harvesting in the Crimson Essence. I wanted a little bit of life gain in this deck, so I'm playing 1 in the Rune deck and 1 in the main deck. This card isn't awful, in the sense that, you know, if you do have to sack a Resonator, you can just sack a token, and you can do it at quick cast speed if you really need to. And that's a really good way of getting around Barrier and Eternal for 2 black. Playing 4 Sword of Progression, and then 2 Sealed Glyph of Infinite Loop. This is a good way of getting rid of non-Resonator spells, especially Chance. Like if your opponent plays something like Sword of Progression, and you manage to glyph them, all of a sudden those cards are going to be really hard to play as the game goes on. So just I'm thinking that's pretty good for Paradox, but I'm also playing 3 of the 1,000 Fractured Reflections. This is our accessible mirror in the format, plus it's within our color specifications, so I do get access to this. It does have Remnant as well, and if I do have it earlier in the game, it helps me to draw an extra card by expelling a wind and stopping spells from going off, so it's kind of nice to have that. I do play a couple of Statue of the Misty Dragon just as additional ways to say flicker Grendel, flicker my Wuja Wu if I want to, and I'm actually going to go up to a couple more copies of this because I'm getting rid of Whip. I think this card is incredibly, incredibly strong, especially now that we have realized that Belligerence does register as damage against Wardens. You can, in fact, attack Wardens with Belligerence. That's incredibly important to recognize. I did not realize that going into this format, so this card feels like it has a lot more value to me personally. I am playing a couple of the Paradoxical Maidens, even though this card can at times feel a little awkward for us to play, strangely enough. Being able to quick cast this in for X and develop an X value for this card does allow me to sort of push my Nexus counters to a new height, so I can start playing 4 costs. Or sorry, not 4 costs, but I can start making 4/4s with my 4 Nexus counters, which does feed into the effect of Nero's flip side as well. So I wanted something to kind of interact with that mechanic, so I'm playing a couple of these, although you could easily side these as well. In my experience, this card was very similar to like a girl staring at. When played in a very particular niche scenario, this card does feel like that card, even though we don't have it in Paradox format. So this card is really interesting for that particular reason. So maybe 2 in the main, 1 in the side. 1 in the main, 2 in the side, something like that. Some sort of combination, some sort of ratio. You guys let me know how you like to play this particular card. I do play a couple of hollow. This is an interesting way of just continuing to develop vial board damage a little bit. I'm not entirely sure if you even need hollow in the deck. He's just kind of in theme, and in that sense, I played a couple of him, and there were times in which I realized, like, copying something my opponent controls is actually pretty decent. You cannot copy Vacuous, but I do think Vacuous has a really strong placement in this. Not only is he an on-enter get rid of something on your opponent's field, that develops a Nexus counter for you, which is really good. So being able to do that is really, really good. Plus, he's overall just a really strong card. He's got addition removal, which is really good in this format, but also gets rid of regalia that don't have barrier of any kind, so that's really great as well. Notably, you cannot copy him with hollow and get additional effects, because he only gains the effects of he only will gain the effects listed below that text there, as long as he is the only entity with Vacuous member of the 12 Sacred Knights on your side of the field. So just keep that in mind. Normally his mythic trigger would work like that, but if you try and copy this guy, you're not going to have a good time. Things are not going to go like you think. In the sideboard, I was definitely experimenting with a couple of Muse Staring At. I think this card definitely belongs in the sideboard. There's a lot of interesting things that this card can do now that we do not have Girl Staring At all in the game. But in addition to that, I just think this card is going to be able to interact in such a way that people are really going to have to start considering this card a little bit more. In my runes, I do have a Harvesting the Crimson Essence, like I said before. I play one of the Sealed Glyph of Infinite Loop. I play Monstrify. This card is really good in this because all of a sudden, if your Nexus counters can become, instead of 4/4s, they become 13/13s. That's relatively good. You can turn your Night Hearts into 4/4s that now are 9/9s. If you end up having your regalia attached in some ways, all of a sudden your 9/9 is a 12/12 base, which is really, really strong, and it has Terrifying. So whatever your attack target is, you're just going to be able to get in for that damage with absolutely no problem. This card just in general felt really, really strong in this particular format. One card that I thought was okay, but I would change to the Freezing Rune in a heartbeat, is Unfounded Suspicions. This card is totally fine. It comes in the starter deck, and this card has some value for sure, Divinity 3, but the fact that you can play the Freezing Rune, I think this card gets replaced automatically. And then I played Fungal Blast because I wanted a little bit of extra removal. Let's go into the Wanderer's staples that I have here on forceofwind.online. If you want more Force of Will deck building capabilities, this is a really great way to do that. Some of the cards you do get access to in this format are things like Loki's Insight for more hand control and hand sculpting. You also have Percival to be able to find some of your more important chants that are in the deck, things like Thousand Reflections or your Swords of Progression. Plus what this does is it'll give you a Nexus counter, which is really, really helpful for you overall, so just keep that in mind. There's something to be said about, as you go into this format, there's something to be said about potentially Tamas as well, to just come in, draw you a card, and then be able to banish themselves for just like little chip damage, things like that. There's like little cantrippy things like that are really, really helpful. We do have 3 Beast Warriors as a way of getting rid of additions and regalia, drawing you a card and creating you a Nexus counter all at quick cast speed. I think that's incredibly important to recognize. We also have Robometa. If you do not prefer Dorian, you do get access to Robometa. And then some of the cards that I really wanted to talk about were actually in the Void pool. Something that I didn't recognize is you can actually play Void cards. So that's interesting. If you end up playing any of your any of your Diabolos regalia and you just want access to those, Yggdrasil can get you those and also give you a Nexus counter. We also have access to the map of Axbryn, which can set up your stones a little bit more efficiently, if you will. One thing you do not get access to in this deck are things like high-speed uppercut, because you are a wind ruler, which is a little unfortunate. However, you do get a ton of really interesting resonators in darkness. You get things like Suya, which then functions as a remnant. Just pick a card from your opponent's hand and RFG it, which is really great. You also get access to Ethereal Princess in Wanderer. You no longer get access to her in Paradox, which is incredibly important to recognize, but you also have access to Lucifer Defeated One Wing, so you can start to develop this scenario in which you start to pilot a very aggressive bug list, which is really different. Like, generally these colors are not known for their aggression, but between Ethereal Princess, Hounds, and Lucifer, you can create a scenario in which your opponent is losing life every single turn, in the same way that you are losing life every single turn, but you benefit from that and they have absolutely no benefit from their life loss. That's incredibly interesting to recognize as well. Going into some of the multi-attribute cards that we can play, we can also play some things that I think are really interesting. We get access to things like Arlequin in this format. So being able to get rid of something from your opponent's hand and bounce some things back to their hand to kind of control their tempo while also getting yourself a Nexus counter are pretty good. You do have things like Zombie returning from the Paramita of the Dead with Evil Dead. So you have things in black like... Actually, I would prefer Doubt here. This is a really good anti-aggression card that can just continually come back every single turn for 1 black and give you a Nexus counter, which at the end of the turn you're going to proc 1 anyway. But having some sort of 1 black put this thing onto the field effect is really powerful for you. In addition to that, we do get access to Chubby Five-Tailed Fox if you want some additional draw power, which is really great. And that's probably all I would say in terms of the multi-attribute cards. There might be more. Let me know some of your suggestions down in the comment section down below. But as I go into the runes, just keep in mind that Freed from the Altar is available to us for 1 divinity. Very helpful. It is just the ability to find a darkness card, a darkness resonator, and put it into your hand. You also have Power of Immortality, which is a very classic darkness rune for... those New Valhalla fans in the crowd. We also have access to Tears of the Fallen. So if you need to start flipping runes very quickly, you do have access to these 0-cost runes that you can just start flipping up. In case you want to proc something like being able to play Grendel from Graveyard, you can just stack up on darkness runes like Tears of the Fallen and really get away with that. In other places, you do have access to Diverse Evolution to start putting some stats on all the various different kinds of resonators you can play in this format. And so that's incredibly important to recognize as well. You get access to Invitation for just search a card at any point. Forest Meditation, but also most importantly, Explore the Unknown for a Divinity 3. Just find a Wind Resonator from the top 5 cards. That's really important if you want to get into things like if you want to find more of your Maidens or even find more of your Wuja Woos. Just being able to dig a little bit deeper, that's just a really good utility rune that you have access to. So guys, let me know what you think down in the comment section down below. I thought this deck was incredibly... well, I was honestly a little surprised how well this deck kind of operated. With some tweaks, I actually think it could be incredibly relevant. But I do think kind of a resonator-based strategy that sees all of your chants and all of your runes being used defensively to sort of ensure that you have high impact resonators hitting the field is the way to take this version of the deck. But let me know what you think down in the comment section down below. While you're down there, ring that bell and hit subscribe if you want more content like this. We're going to be doing other deck profiles and other things in the future. Valentio is going to be coming a little bit later on as well. And this deck played very differently than the Valentio deck did, even with using the same pack. So I'm really looking forward to showing that to you guys. But let me know what you think down in the comment section down below. And until next time, this is Paul saying class is dismissed. See you guys.